Jamie. We are live. So, welcome.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well. It's still morning on Super
Cheers.
Sunday.
Yeah, Super Sunday.
I'm gonna do the disclaimer right now. So if I stand here like a deer in headlights, it's so for anyone who's watching, it's because I'm still having audio issues with my headphones and microphone. So there'll be like this moment where I'll, pause face, and then the brain works again. So FYI.
Gotcha.
So
Can you turn the ticker off? Because that's like
you don't like tickers?
Not a big fan of the ticker.
I'm trying to figure out a subtle way to state, talk to our viewers on Twitch and YouTube. Plus,
Well, there's lots of extra words in there, like numbers that are kind of strange and at the same time kind of sad. So,
I just forgot a few zeros.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to be the sales guy. I don't want to try and push. But if anyone's out there listening, watching, we welcome you all. I'm a big fan of just doing this with Jamie. It's not about the numbers.
Yeah, you say that, and then there's those times where you like pull me aside and you're like, okay, man, so we have to have a plan. Like I've worked on this and I've got this idea and we need to do this and we need to do that. So
Well,
it's which Kurt are you getting today? So
one can have a little ambition.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, just a little push.
Healthy ambition is good. So also healthy competition is good.
Yes. Friendly fire.
Friendly fire.
No, friendly fire is bad.
No, friendly fire is bad. Friendly competition is good.
Yes.
So
positive.
Good banter on Super Bowl Sunday.
Can I advertise like this though? Like, can I do those? Is that better?
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
I did find for Charlie. This is the link to his newest EP or album. This is not an EP. This is a full blown deal, I believe, on Triplicate Records. So there's the link. Go support my brother. However, the background music is not Charlie.
Yeah, it's not Charlie. So let's.
But there's other great stuff.
Yeah, so let's start the show.
All right. Give me 1 second. All right. See you in a second. Hey, Jamie. How's it going?
Good morning. Episode 110.
That's right. It's
with your piping hot coffee
like
this morning.
There you go.
Yeah, he gets a.
It's that I wanna at least say why it stays hot is this is part of my Christmas gift. So this is a mug, and it came with this heating element, USB heating element. So I think it has like something that, induction heating or whatever. So I put it on this thing and it keeps it warm.
It makes me think of that song Firestarter.
I love that song. I love Prodigy.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, I wanted to be Prodigy so bad when I was a kid. I mean, it's about the punk rebellion, like our generational approach.
There was a lot of angst in there. Yes. Yeah.
It always surprises me that I think most of them are still alive. It's a lot of intensity.
Yeah. There's a lot of intensity with that for sure. So, what is in your USB heated fire hazard coffee mug in the Great White North.
I believe it actually does have a safety feature
Okay.
that will turn off after a certain length of time, and or I don't think it has a scale. That would be cool though, if it was empty. But it's actually a interesting blend, I believe. So we use this service called Misfits Market, and so like organic fruit and veggies and things that are a little lumpy looking, right? You know, the misfits in the bunch. Tend, I don't know if you're aware of this, but supermarkets tend to chuck them out because the vast majority of shoppers don't like to look at ugly fruit. I hate to break it to you. It's kind of sad, but a company called Misfits Market has collects all these and then sells them at a little bit of a discount and ships it to your door. So we use that, and then but you can also add in some other things, and like so in this case, the coffee, we got some coffee that is intelligentsia coffee, but they sort of repackage it, I think, and so they blend some beans together. It's not like straight, brew of or roast of one kind or another, and they call it odds and ends, and it's intelligent. It was pretty good. It's hey, in the vein of sustainability and reducing waste to the globe, that's I can definitely support that with a nice hot cup of coffee. So that's my plug of the day.
Cheers to that. Yeah.
I hope you weren't prepared for that one, huh?
I was not prepared for that one. No, certainly not.
But you're aware that Kurt and Danielle are very
Oh
earth
no,
conscious.
absolutely, and I have heard of that company, and
Mm.
or like if it's not them, it's somebody that's doing what they're doing, and so
There's
yeah,
people around the country that do that.
I think it's I think it's really kind of interesting, and they have definitely some interesting marketing, but
Mhm.
yeah, so
How
yeah,
about you?
from a coffee standpoint, I will say that I did find it like it like it. There's always just like one bag too of the Timmies. I found some more Timmies in the store, and so I was,
Nostalgia is strong.
yeah, I mean, I was not going to get any coffee, and just getting some stuff at the market and saw it. It's like as if it had been placed on the shelf just for me. Um, so yeah, I ended up picking that up. So,
Ah,
but
nice.
and on a side note, I've also noticed that Rootless had done a kind of an interesting promotion here recently, where they were, um, you know, they were actually sketching on their bags. So I don't know if that means that they're getting closer and closer to that coffee sketch roast, but it really seems like they're you know they're trying to tell me something through the interwebs.
Good. Yeah, actually, good find. Um, I saw another post that they did. So they are, what's fun about them, and let me throw up this little caption for those that are interested in some local Flint coffee. They um they have affinity toward art. They all their bags are decorated with um, a custom designed label by different artists. And this year at Valentine's, they decided to sketch on top of the empty or unlabeled bags for a limited time. So it's a good reminder, though. I will have to reach out to Sean and Jono and see where we are with some coffee sketch coffee.
Yeah, because I mean, I think this is that might be the one little push that we need to do. Like, I have visions of a sketch together where there's because we have done that in the past where I have sketched something, or well, actually, you've sketched something and sent it to me, and I've sketched over the top of it, and vice versa. So I see that as a rootless future.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea. You're full of good ideas today, Jamie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the coffee. It's the Timmy's. So I'm gonna chalk it up to the Timmy's.
You know, it reminds me of Tim Hortons. So you've been to, I mean, you must have been to Tim Hortons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When you're up near Homeland.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the sort of giveaway that they do? They do like, you know, like McDonald's, all the fast food chains, they do like some sort of promotional giveaways and prize thing.
Right. Right.
And Tim Hortons has the roll up the cup. Maybe they don't do that, or it's been a while, but they have a so the paper cup, you roll up the lip of the cup, and your prize will be listed underneath. So as you're drinking, and you wear it down, and it gets a little damp from the heated, and anyway, I feel though
the visual of you trying to imagine rolling up a cup and then describing it has just been, that's like comedy gold right there.
You're gonna have to Google it, but yeah. I will say that there's no data behind this, but I feel like the chances of winning with Tim Hortons is more likely than any other chain prize campaign.
Because Canadians
are generous people.
We're just generous. Yeah. Yeah. I'll go with that. Now, not being generous is, I'm gonna, kind of, here's my little segue is this morning, even though we are going to talk the big Super Bowl and some predictions. Mm-hmm. I did watch the other football this morning, and
right.
So Manchester United was, and this is a me generously, acknowledging that a friend of ours, someone that we admire, Peter Exley, past president of the American Institute of Architects, has probably one of the best suit collections of an architect that we probably know.
Good tagline too.
Yeah, and his firm, Architecture is Fun, is, I think, pretty great. But probably sad face today for Peter, because Man U went to Leeds, and yeah, we kind of won big. So,
wow. What was the final?
2-0.
No, 2-0.
Yeah. Right? Oh, okay.
Wow.
Oh, we're going to do that now.
You got to do the Ted Lasso. That's 2-0. Wow, that's pretty. It's pretty substantial. And
yeah, well, they're having a little trouble this year. So they're almost in a relegation battle, and without a manager, they sacked their manager. They haven't replaced him. Most clubs, food for thought, when they're going to sack somebody, they usually have kind of a backup plan or some plan in place. So it looks like they're having a little difficulty with that. But they've got, what's fun is that they are a fun club to watch on the pitch. And they definitely bring it in terms of energy. And they have quite a few Americans. So they've got quite a few Americans that they've picked up and who are playing well. So that's the other football for this morning. But Jamie very happy. And Peter very sad. But so let's talk predictions. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's get into it.
So as and many of our friends and listeners know, I'm from the East Coast. So there's always a little gravity around East Coast sports. The Eagles, however, are a interesting bunch, and their fan base is an interesting bunch. And
Yes.
maybe it's because I'm far enough away from the gravitational pull of Philadelphia, and I grew up in Connecticut, but there's definitely a lot of Eagle fans up there. However, it's kind of it's probably more, maybe not so many public Eagles fans because of New York Jets, Giants, you know the Patriots, if you extend your reach that far. But anyway, I'm gonna I'm gonna predict the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. The Birds, man, because I enjoy the intensity of their fan base, and they put on a good show.
Do we get a
Those
score
are-
prediction? Do we get a score prediction as well? Let's go score prediction.
NFL scores are really difficult to. Let's
Well,
say
yeah.
27-14. It's pretty. It's a pretty big ask.
That's a big ask. That's like,
It's a heavy lift.
yeah.
I mean, we have no money online, so
No.
unless we need to put dollars online.
No, there's no gambling involved. Other than maybe coffee gambling. Yeah, we'll do coffee gambling. How about that?
I can score you if let's see. So if we should go through your prediction.
Okay,
first.
so my predictions is that I am sorry, Eagles fans. We will this is the point of the show where there will no longer be subscribers from Philadelphia. If there were, because there's always those teams that are the villains for you in the league. Whatever kind of thing that you're kind of into, there's always that team. That's or player that's a villain. I admit I do like their quarterback, and some of the players on the team, are I will I'll leave it there. I think Jalen Hurts is kind of a he's fun to watch, but and so I think the game is going to be fun, but yeah, Eagles not the thing not for Jamie. And not to mention the fact that they knocked out my Niners. So there is that, but that is not the only reason. Because usually I'm kind of more of an NFC guy than an AFC guy. But yeah, Eagles. Yeah, I'm not going to root for the Eagles. That's a no-go. That's a non-starter. But I will admit that they are going to score some points today. So I'm going with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to win. Patrick got the MVP apparently. I didn't catch that. But yeah, this week was the honors week, right. So they did all the honors. But yeah, I'm going 31-29.
Ooh, right, keeping it close.
Keeping it close, but
down to the wire.
I think that there's a going to be kind of an interesting score.
Both numbers, so 27. What did I say? 27-14.
Yeah.
31-29.
Yeah.
In both cases, they involve the kicker.
Yes.
That 3-point game is going to be key.
Yeah.
So then we've got our diametrically opposed predictions, our conflict. So now we need to put some skin in the game, coffee related. So if the Eagles win, does that mean you have to gift me something?
I need to send you some coffee.
And then if the Chiefs win, I will. So if the Chiefs win, I will try and score you a custom sketched bag of rootless coffee, and it might have to say, boohoo birds or something.
Okay.
And then if the Eagles win, Well, if you need to think about it,
I need to think about it because I
then
like I
it'll come.
like yeah. I mean, well, maybe by the end of the show, like I'll have come up with. But I mean, because there's so many good like purveyors, local roasters that I think that maybe that's it. Maybe okay. So it's going to be like a. I think you'll get 2 bags of some and flavors that you've not had yet. There you go. Because I know what we have done the care packages from time to time.
Yeah, and then I'll have to take both flavors and mix them together.
Yeah, because that's apparently the thing now, right?
That's what I do. It's the odds and ends.
Yeah, it's the odds and ends. Okay.
So we should move to our sketches for today.
Yes.
All right. Should we just reveal them all at once?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. We'll start here. If I went to this screen, it highlights. Hold on. How do you like that? Musical chairs. You don't like that. I know you don't.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Not a fan
of this. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like very unbalanced, kind of weird.
Well, I can move people around, but I'm not going to do that because that might make you mad. Okay. Unless you want the drawing down here. That's about all I'll do. I'll just stop there.
Okay, you just stop.
I might offend Jamie to a degree where he just leaves.
No.
And we won't find out, what coffees I'm going to get.
Right.
Because the Eagles will win.
It's not going to happen, buddy.
Well, this is going to be fun. I got to find somewhere to go to watch the game. Usually some neighbors pull together a little casual viewing party, but I'm still waiting for that text. Hopefully I didn't get excluded from the neighborhood.
I think you got I think it's well, I mean the game isn't till later, so I mean
got a while. There's time.
You got a while. There's hours.
Yet.
Yeah, there's hours left. Hours.
I just want to point out we have a viewer or two. So if you want to say anything polite, Jamie.
Well, if they're from Philadelphia or if they're rooting for the Eagles, I'm sorry. There's and there's where the accent comes in.
Yeah. Is that to be cute so that they feel bad for you a little bit?
No.
The accent.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, if it's like when the Canadians sort of insult you, or insult your team, like we're trying to be as polite about it as possible.
Right.
So
they're kind people.
Kind people. So,
well, welcome to anyone watching live. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat.
And yeah, as Kurt has the screen all goofed up, so who knows where those questions will pop up. But
I'll let you know. Okay. I'll surprise you. So there's some interesting sketches plus photograph. The photograph came from me. The sketches came from Jamie. And should we just go left to right? And then we can zoom in a little bit. And
yeah.
Oh, that's what. Maybe we should switch it to like this view before I really take Jamie off. Oops. There we go. How about that? Get a little bigger screen.
Yeah, makes it easier.
And so, so start off. Tell us a little bit about the left-hand sketch, which then, when we were setting this thing up, caused me to think about this particular building in the middle that I hope people are scratching their head over.
I'm hoping there's a good story about the tangy crab. So,
there is. There's for sure.
Because it definitely sparked some, and I mean, and I love it that there's like this little tiny person on a bike, like just sneaking by. Yeah, for scale. But yeah, no, I did the first sketch as part of it was sort of some in situ notes from a location, and so this is an actual building. and an actual location here in Texas. And one of the things that I encounter a lot in my work, and Kurt and I've talked about this a little bit too, is sort of the idea of interventions on buildings and helping folks realize how to save aspects of the materials within them. So talk about it as sort of integrity of a building, and not just integrity from the standpoint of the structural systems and whether or not building is coming down or having some issues, but also sort of the integrity of keeping the interesting features that make a place special. And so there's some dialogue with both of those things within this sketch. And in particular, what I was also trying to kind of explore, and sort of making some more mental notes for myself and getting them down on the page, is what you sort of see down at the bottom is sort of this plan, kind of isometric view, kind of exploded axo, and then some detail work, as well as the perspectival image of the interior of the space. And for those that kind of listening to the listening, and not necessarily seeing, is the sketch is the perspective sketch sort of dominates the page. It's trying to capture the essence of that space, and it is the first one that's done. It's in sort of taking the notes is how do you, and dropping kind of those ghost-like people in there for scale, so that somebody kind of realizes how you can kind of inhabit this space or this zone. But then explore this idea of what happens when you have a building that the roof is caving in, and it's a building on a block, and it's got neighbors, and it's got party walls. What do you do? What do you do as a designer, as an architect, as a property owner, as a contractor, to kind of imagine what that space could be? And then how do you explain it to everybody so that everybody's on the same page as you're talking about it, literally? And so that's what this sketch is really trying to get at, is getting everybody to see what in your own mind's eye as a designer, you're starting to imagine as the possibility.
That's excellent. And I hope, and I would imagine that the 2D and 3D diagramming you did at the bottom helped people visualize it, plus the perspectival sketch. But I mean, I really like the plan with the grid, and then the structural skeleton cage that's kind of like getting inserted, the axonometric sketch that you put in the middle to show, plus cross bracing, lateral resistance. Got to remember lateral forces. But the just the inserting that into the container. And it reminds me of there is another building in Detroit, not this one here, but trying to preserve a facade, and they built a scaffold of steel behind just the front facade to preserve until future renovation or rehabilitation could occur. But yeah, so I mean, it's a little bit different to the building on the right in this, your sketch to the project that I was, or this building that I pulled in here. But I've told some people around town that this is like my favorite building in Flint, just because of the oddity of this billboard and the structure that needing to support this billboard that sits or stretches across like a cage on the outside of the existing building, as opposed to your sketches going from the inside. But this this particular building, the downstairs is actually a motorcycle shop, and then the Tangy Crab is actually like across the street. So this is more like an advertisement to say, go to the Tangy Crab. But this thing is, it's a steel structure of just to support this billboard. And I've never yet, I haven't yet figured out the why or, when this thing was created, but I guess why I like it is that it sort of reminds me of like old archigram things, these sort of the super studio and the
It's
sort
like
of,
a walker.
it is.
It's almost like this. You could imagine that this exoskeleton has sort of like walked up and sort of decided to park itself in and around this building. It also has sort of a um, Lebbeus Woods sort of fever dream uh, approach to it. Like, if he was into marketing, like if he's sort of like helping with the marketing campaign, like, oh, I've got an idea for you. Let me show you how to do a billboard. Um,
Well, what's funny that you bring it up marketing wise is on the left with your sketch, you're trying to express like how to preserve an existing building with a bad roof, which is very common. The party walls are usually masonry. The roofs were used to be built in wood, and they tend to rot and fall apart, and over the years. And so using um, some modern techniques to repurpose an existing building. But then on the right hand side, it's not. This is not a historic structure that I am aware of. But the steel in this case are to support commercial endeavor. This is
right.
very different, right?
Well, I mean, and even as I'm looking at this building in Flint, it's there's certain things about it that you can see that the building has had things done to it over time, which is really, really
Yeah.
common, and people will throw around the term adaptive reuse, and I think and this is like the fancy word, but the juxtaposition of old against new, in terms of material, when it's done really, really well, and there's a sensitivity to and when I say sensitivity, I think it's a distinctness, so that you distinctly see one time period next to distinctly seeing something from a different time period, and that both things can be read at the same time, and then it becomes like a collage. And if it's balanced properly, if one doesn't sort of overtake the other in a way, I think that there's some beauty in that. By the same token, though, as we're sort of staring at these two buildings, it does sort of this Lebbeus Woods sort of fever dream super studio, that has encapsulated this small little container in Flint. At the same time, they aren't touching the building, and so that there is something like really beautiful about it. Like you say, it's like your favorite building. I could imagine someone kind of coming in and doing some additional work to the container, the box within the structure now, and finding ways to kind of almost have a dialogue, an even stronger dialogue between the exoskeleton and the bike shop that's sort of inside it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks. I do. That's why I do appreciate it. Is the visibility of the old and the new that are occurring, and also I wonder even how. And this is more of like zoning or ownership. It's like who owns the steel? Does the building owner, or is he selling his air rights, what we call air rights, above the building to the billboard company to then plant this structure around it? It could be, I always keep my eye on this building. I've always wanted to talk about it with you because it's so odd. But
Well, I mean, and billboards, I mean, that's like a podcast and a half. The
yeah,
whole concept of roadside architecture and billboards and the you there's those images where they're like, oh, this is the suburbanization of America, and it's like the road, and it's got a billion billboards and signs and everything. Look, you don't know where you are. I'm not talking necessarily about that. I think that the idea of billboards, air rights, the it's not even just the air rights, it's actually the location of where those billboards are, because it's like some cities will, when you kind of dig into it a little bit, they put moratoriums on the amount of billboards. So then you have these locations that are grandfathered in, that are historic in a sense, that they've been there for so long, and somebody's holding on to that billboard and trying to maintain it. This one, this place definitely has a story, and I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the appeal, right? Is that, like you say, there's this building, there's this kind of crazy exoskeleton billboard, that looks like it's trying to almost be sort of parasitic to it, to the building itself. I mean, there's a story there. I mean, somebody spent a lot of time figuring out how to achieve this aesthetic, around this building. I mean, it's very deliberate, clearly very deliberate, a little bit overbuilt, just a little bit.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of seismic concerns in Michigan.
Right. Yeah, this billboard isn't going anywhere, folks. For those who can't see the photo, we'll definitely have it in the show notes. But
well, we do have wind, and uplift, and the billboard itself is facing pretty much northwest, so kind of the prevailing wind. I mean, if you were, because this would be if you're driving east into downtown, and it's kind of like, so that would be like the most severe wind angle that you would want, which probably requires the most steel. But maybe, like you said, it is a little overbuilt.
But the perfect marketing for this restaurant. So
I mean, it does change. The billboard graphic does change from time to
time. I want it to be the same forever, like, because this just it's as if they said, can we have a billboard that looks like a crab walker, like, who has just,
that's perfect,
kind of, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And
they told the tangy crab, like, if I was helping them with their marketing, I feel like I really hope it's a good restaurant.
It's good,
and I'm not, and they need to buy this building. Like, they need to put their restaurant in this building, because that would be amazing.
And then paint the structure red.
And then just do everything, like, about
the red steel
synthesis of the two things.
Would Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown, would they put claws?
There might be. Maybe
this is not a duck, and then this is not a crab.
Yeah, I think this is a duck. This is not a decorated shed. So.
Oh yeah, it's a fun parallel. Anyway, I don't mean to be too jokey about it, but it is a lot of interesting aspects of it. I'm going to keep track of this building, and if Mike's motorcycle ever wants to sell, see what he wants for it and get my hands.
I'm saying, Rootless Coffee, if you're listening, you might be getting a sketch of the Tangy Crab exoskeleton bike shop remodel fever dream of Kurt and Jamie's super studio, a la the Italians.
Well, they are looking to expand, so maybe they need to also look out for this spot. So here's my fun segue to, we also wanted to bring this drawing in of Jamie's, which is a little bit more description of adaptive reuse, right, of an existing building that you're working on with your Texas Society or Texas Historic District Commission, right? The Main Street Architects. So what's going on? I'll zoom in a little bit and
Yeah, so this is a different city, but again, a situation where property owner has a building on a corner and is trying to understand what the possibilities of the building are. And I think for me, as I was talking to them about the program that they were trying to think through and wonder about as options for the building, it really became evident that this was a design about section. So it was, the floor plates were the floor plates, but thinking about the building less about what happens on the first floor and what happens on the second floor, but how do you start to break down the first floor so that you can kind of do two different things. So this building gets designed in section, as opposed to with two fronts, and everything sort of interlocking in space, in a fairly tight footprint. It had alley access, also has the side. Parking wasn't an issue. So there, certainly things that are parameters that oftentimes don't allow for some of these kind of interventions. Those weren't issues in this particular case. Mm-hmm. Also from a development standpoint, this downtown district was really trying to activate the backside of these buildings, because of some other proximities to a farmer's market that they had. So this building has been sitting vacant for 20 years. So getting an old historic building back online is objective one, and then property owner is sort of exploring, well, I'm not sure I have a tenant or concept that would take over the entirety of the volume. So what can I do, and what are the possibilities to make it attractive, both for other businesses to come in if they're sort of developing it for them, but then also working within the parameters of the building itself. This had been a bank with a corner entry, and over time somebody had, and you could sort of see in that sort of series of sketches, that they had reoriented the door. So the upper left-hand corner of the page, they had reoriented the door to the middle on the front facade. And then, there's a sketch sort of below it where I'm sort of exploring this idea of section and kind of where some existing demising walls for their front lobby to their back of house spaces were. But you sort of see that it has a fairly straightforward 3-bay, that are fairly equalized on the front, but there's some underlying, just like we saw with the building in Flint, there's some underlying texture and other architectural elements that you can still see. They're still evident. They haven't been completely covered up because it's a masonry building. But there's some clues in there that it's like, well, maybe this building sitting on the corner of this street that's been here for almost 100 years, maybe it had a corner entry. Maybe the building itself started to respond to its environment. And sure enough, doing a little research, you kind of realize that and that those openings are still there. They've just been closed in. So that starts to unlock a response at the front, makes the building kind of inviting as it sort of turns the corner, and then starts to suggest something in the back as well. So there was some exterior treatments in the sketches, as well as reinforcing for the owner this idea of interlocking spaces inside the box. So it's not just all surface treatments, which you often see in renderings or quick blush design concepts for properties in a downtown district. Is like, oh yeah, well here's how to make the doors work, here's how to make the windows work, here's where the sign or the canopy should go, call it a day. this was let's dig just one level deeper, and think about this building, and then that's why the perspective in this case is actually at the bottom of the page, was, the diagram started the discussion, and then the perspective was like, here's where it starts. All those pieces start to come together, and trying to describe it for somebody.
The the corner buildings, especially historic corner buildings, can be tricky too, because you have now two to three of the four facades available to be opened up, or more visible, or so more transparent. And I don't know, from my experience when dealing with clients interested in things like this, say they wanted to put a restaurant in there, but I want all this glass. I want to
Right.
open it all up. I mean, aside from the historic, like, there's some limitations historically that you would want to be careful of. But then functionally, right, commercial kitchen, bathrooms, storage, janitor's closet, all those mechanical components take up space that you don't necessarily want to expose with windows. So it becomes a challenge when trying to respect the existing envelope. The footprint looks pretty compact, so there's minimal, like, it's not a very large space, so you're kind of constrained in that manner too. So anyway, those are just things that I think of. It's always tough to, like, say, well, if you want all these things, like, we may not have as much room for glass and things like that.
Well, and it's funny too, is that it's, as you sort of described that's that's sort of the everywhere discussion for some of these downtown districts, as a designer kind of coming into that conversation. And sometimes you have to sort of tell people kind of the hard reality of, maybe what you want to do in this building, this isn't the right building for you.
Yeah.
It's not that your restaurant concept, or your program is wrong, but is kind of getting to the point of saying, don't force that square peg into the round hole. I mean, it's just like, and what you described about that side condition, I think that was the fear from the city's perspective, was that somebody's going to buy this building, and they're going to, because of its location, they're going to want to open up the whole thing, and tear out down the side and start putting all this glazing in. But when you start to think about it, it's like, well, what use do you put in there? If you do something, the building isn't deep enough to do all those things. And then from a structural point of view, now you're having to really do some gymnastics, as you're making the building that's been there for so long structurally inadequate for for the conversion that you're proposing. You're going to have to add so much steel, into it, to start blowing through those openings and creating all these glazing opportunities that really aren't necessary. And now you are forcing your concept into something that really shouldn't be it. And so I think what's backing that out sort of as a conversation is, I think, and we haven't necessarily talked about it too much on the podcast before, but I think it's something sort of worth saying, is historic preservation gets a bad rap, because of exactly what we're talking about, more often than not. And it's not pointed out in this kind of a way, it's not that your economic development idea or your entrepreneurial idea is a bad one or is being discouraged. Sometimes it is being discouraged, I mean, it is being discouraged, by permit officials, development fees, red tape, all these kinds of, yes, totally agree. All those things happen, and put a bad light on a situation and make it difficult for folks to pursue their dreams. But really, oftentimes, when folks are, more often not, the underlying message in some of this is some of those ideas aren't, you're not putting it in the right place. You're as a designer, is recognizing somebody's investing all this money. You want to help them invest it, well. It's yes, let's use these existing buildings for these ideas, absolutely, but let's not pick the building that this shouldn't happen in and try and force it to, or change all that stuff and spend all this money making all those kinds of changes when you go down to the next block and there's another building that might be a much better location for the thing that you're trying to do. Granted, it's not the corner, street corner or something like that, but I think those are some of the realities that preservationists sort of don't necessarily recognize, that there's sort of other competing objectives, or they don't want to speak to them. They speak to them more from no, you need to preserve this building element, and they start, sort of stepping it into more of a theoretical kind of discussion, as opposed to, comfortably talking about both things at the same time. Like we can multitask, as designers, we can do hard things. We can do both things at the same time. So
yeah, and it reminds me of, like, this may not be an exact quote, but the Louis Kahn quote of, like, brick, what do you want to be? Asking the brick what it wants to be, and kind of like asking these old buildings, what do you want to be now that your purpose will change? And instead of the client or the building owner saying, I'm going to make it this. And then the last thing I'll say is,
well, and before you get to the last thing, I love that. I love that you bring it up that way, because here, Louis Kahn, arguably one of the best American architects, troubled individual, but a educator, a theoretician, and executed some amazing buildings. And when he's speaking about that, I think that people write that kind of comment off as architects or designers being kind of flippant, and sort of theoretical about, what does the brick want to be? But I think the way you couch it there, in this conversation is absolutely right. It's like, what should be going in these buildings? Like, why aren't communities having more of those conversations, as opposed to, oh, well, we want to have this, and they look at their downtown and they can't imagine it. They can't get from what they want to what they see. And so they're like, well, what we see, we got to get rid of that to get what we want. And it's like, no, like, let's try a little harder, just a little.
right. Well, and I think too, the last thing I was going to say was that, thinking back to when I was a student, since I'm teaching students right now, and so I kind of see a lot of these their intuition is starting off in certain areas. For example, they kind of think of, like, curtain walls, right, and big expanses of glass, and think that's, like, the way to get light into the building is, like, walls of glass. And I think I did the same thing when I was a student. But as I have grown in this profession, especially with an older building, or a building with a sort of, a brick or masonry construction that has, this sensation of mass, or it's not sensation, but an appearance of mass, right? Weight, physical weight. A well-placed punched opening, which what we call, so curtain wall of glass, punched opening, single window, right? Fixed or operable window, but it's a sort of hole cut in the wall versus taking the wall out. And so, um, especially when going back and forth, like we've talked about section and plan and elevation, if you go back and forth, if a window is placed, or a couple of windows placed in the right location where it accentuates aspects of the floor plan and illuminates the space in very controlled manner, can serve much better than just doing a whole wall of glass where there's no definition or variation in space, things like that. And now that I've done what I teach is a little bit of technology. I have this technology component where we can do some daylight analysis with software, and you would be surprised that a couple of smaller punched openings provide a lot more light than you would think, where you don't need that wall of glass. And sometimes it might be smart to use that data to show clients, like, here is the actual condition that you're going to get. It's not going to be as dark as you think. You don't need that wall of glass. So anyway, that's just some food for thought and things. It's almost like a reminder to myself to use those, and this as an example for other projects. So thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think that I think sort of turning the page on this one, but I think that technology component, that extra analysis that you're talking about, is sort of the next, would be the next step in a project like this, and making sure, especially as somebody might be trying to, convince somebody beyond the conversation that you're in the moment. There's always multiple parties that are sort of, at play. Both of us have had, plenty of situations where somebody's like, well, I want to go talk to my partner about this, and, I think some of that data, and kind of using that data kind of creatively to further the concept. And I say further rather than sort of, justify, because it's a process. I mean, that technical, data that you're talking about isn't separate from, it's in addition to the work that you're doing. So you might start out with a sketch and the intuition because of who you are, and then you have another team member who's working on some analysis, and then the two of you kind of meet and say, oh, well, that's kind of interesting how that sort of plays itself out. How does that adjust our work? How does that make the concept better? It's not that the first idea is the only idea. Rarely is. I mean, the instincts, might, when you kind of go back at those early sketches, the instincts might be there, but they needed to evolve too, and that evolution of that idea really makes it great.
Yeah. Agree. And with that, I will pitch it to the outro. This is the after show, Jamie.
I need another cup of coffee, though.
Oh, I know. Well, we don't have to talk too long, but I wanted to show you I made a new print.
Oh, I love it.
And I was, messing around with that same sort of digital sketch, I guess. And it created like these three towers, sort of. And then there's some interesting sort of valleys, canyons, I should say, urban canyons, angles, I guess, maybe if you look at it in plan.
What I think would be great is if you took your object and sort of anchored it on something that you could tilt so that, because I like it when you're sort of spinning it and it's not completely flat. Yeah, I like it at sort of the angles. And so I would imagine sort of like finding something that you can do that with and get your hands out of the way so that you can sort of move around it at an angle and then cast some light on it.
Yeah.
And sort of see what that starts to do in terms of making some volumes. That would be pretty cool.
I think there is like we were just talking about the intuition plus a little bit of analysis and not getting stuck on the first. And I've built 4 or 5 of these, but I'm starting to feel that I'm hitting a limitation, and it's probably part of the algorithm. Like it just sort of caps off, because there's certain aspects that I want to explore, like either like having different slopes on the roof,
right,
or some of the walls starting to splay a little bit and creating a little more like pyramid or tapered condition. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to advance the algorithm. But yeah, I'll have to get a little turntable for that. I don't know. Plus, it's also like a little practice for the 3D printer, So anyway, so now we've hit the show after the show, and I'm hungry.
Yeah, it's time for some more coffee too. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm all juiced up.
And you gotta find where your party's at for your Super Bowl. So.
I know. Well, thanks for hanging out. It was a good one.
Yep.
I will edit, and I think we'll if you're okay with it, we can put them up on Fridays.
Yeah.
Like we have been, the audio. I mean, these streams are up on YouTube and Twitch for those that are up and watching. But anyway, maybe it's the hunger talking, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
Time to go.
Thanks, man.
Go Eagles.